25. I'm Darren Smith. He's John Gennaro, and this is Section 1904. This today is a podcast. It is a stream. We are on YouTube, I think. We are also on Help Me Out Here. You just mentioned it literally not 10 seconds ago, and my mind is a bunch of bread pudding. It is also on X. It is a community, Section 1904. Our Monday weekend recap episodes are always free, but maybe you would consider a subscription to Section 1904. You can go to our website, section1904.com. All the information is there. There's lots of really, really good written content. As a matter of fact, John Gennaro, I will start with a compliment. I was at, drum roll please, McGregor's after the SDFC game last night. And
I didn't know that still existed.
I was sitting at a table. It does exist. And I got a really, really nice compliment in your direction about your writing at section1904.com. So shout out to my pal Dan, who was saying how good of a writer he thought you were. He really enjoys the written content that you have at section1904.com.
Shout out Dan. There was someone on our Discord this weekend too that was waxing poetic about my former writings about the Chargers on Bolts from the Blue and trying to copy some of my style and write long posts in the Discord as such. Yeah, the compliments help.
Yeah, that was really well written. I know what you're talking about. That was on the SDFC tab on the Discord channel. And I was like, yo, this is really well written. Is this copied and pasted from somewhere? Because it came across really, really well. Did you have a good weekend? We'll get to the sports here. It's Monday morning. It's like 9:14. We're a little bit ahead of schedule because with SDFC's shortened week, today is the day where we get some player and coach access. So I have to hightail it out to Saquon in about 45 minutes to an hour. So we're doing this. I've not even had but two sips of my coffee today and just choked down a couple of turkey sausages. So I wasn't going to be running on an empty tank, but got home about midnight last night after SDFC's playoff game. How was your weekend overall? Good one?
It was good. It was good. After last weekend was one of those weekends where I was running around nonstop and didn't have a chance to rest. I like to have a day to just like kind of recharge my batteries. This weekend had a lot more of that, but also had like a late night event on Saturday. So all day yesterday, I was kind of dragging, low on sleep, all of that. Actually, the main reason I didn't write an SDFC recap last night was after the game ended, which I think was at like 9-ish. I was so tired that I was like, whatever I write right now is going to be terrible. I might as well just go to bed. And I did. I went to bed early. I got a lot of sleep. So I'm good now. Batteries recharged. Watched a lot of sports. Most of it was good, at least positive for the teams that I was rooting for. I don't know that there was anything over the weekend that I was like, wow, what a classic game that I'm going to remember forever. But solid weekend. How about you?
Yeah, I feel about the same. I think on Friday we did our weekend preview. You and I rattled off our top 5 sporting events. I had Knicks and Celtics going into the weekend, which was very enjoyable on Friday night. Knicks really, really took it to the Celtics. 2-0 beating the Cavs and the Celtics is pretty good from a Knicks fan's perspective, since those are two teams that have given the Knicks all sorts of problems. Then into the weekend, there was some college football. You and I talked about San Diego State and Fresno State. I'm sure we're going to spend some time on that. The battle for the old oil can, a 6th win, making San Diego State Bowl eligible for the first time for Sean Lewis. I had the Classico on Sunday morning. Didn't exactly go the way I was hoping, but given the circumstances and how many Barcelona players were injured, I suppose I can live with a 2-1 defeat in Madrid. The playoff game, SDFC's first ever playoff game at Snapdragon Stadium, or anywhere for that matter, was an incredible environment. It was really great. I mean, just the vibe, the sense of occasion, people, I mean, Jackson Merrill and Manny Machado and Joe Musgrove, there really was, like I use that phrase, I think, a lot, the sense of occasion at Snapdragon Stadium. So that delivered. We can go into some of the particulars of the game, some of the details of it. It's not aggregate anymore. It's none of that stuff. It's just simply survive and advance. And San Diego Football Club did survive, and they're not advancing yet, but they are a win away from advancing in the MLS Cup playoffs. What was my 5th one? Was Formula One on the list? No, it was not. I'm trying to think. There must have been I must be missing one. But yeah, all in all, like you said, I don't know that it was a weekend. I think I will probably remember it most just because it was the sporting event that I attended and the sporting event that I was on the microphone for. and that was SDFC and Portland Timbers. But yeah, I'm with you. All in all, on the World Series. And the World Series, we got a split in the first couple of games after all the doomsday predictions that the Dodgers were just going to run roughshod over the Toronto Blue Jays. The Blue Jays came to play in that first game, and they wore Blake Snell out, and they really, really put it on the Dodgers on Friday night. Now it's a split, game 3 from Dodger Stadium tonight, 3, 4, 5, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday. So all in all, pretty solid weekend, I think.
I will say for the Blue Jays win on Friday, I had one of those situations, we've all had them, where I'm watching the game and then I need to leave the room for like 10 minutes to do something else, and I came back and it was a dramatically different score. It went from like Blue Jays were up 2-1, 3-1, something like that. Bases were loaded, and I was trying to like stay right there, and I had to leave the room, I think, to help my daughter with something. And I came back and it was like 11-1. I was like, what happened? This game is over. But rooting against the Dodgers, that was a fun score to come back to.
Yeah, and now it's split. So we'll see. I mean, maybe it's still going to be a short series. Maybe the Dodgers just, go out there and truck the Blue Jays over the next couple of days. I don't think that's going to be the case. I really don't. But obviously that's why we'll be watching on Monday night. I mean, for the life of me, I could not tell you what the Monday night football game is. So it probably doesn't stand much of a chance in my house. But between the World Series and the MLS Cup playoffs, I think I'm pretty good even on a Monday. There's MLS playoff games tonight. There's an MLS playoff game or two tomorrow. I think there might even be one on Wednesday. So this schedule is just kind of all over the place. I mean, it's hard to figure out exactly what's happening here. But where do you want to start? You want to start with San Diego Football Club last night, since it's the thing that happened most recently?
Yeah, although I'm going to ask you this question and we can transition into it. Are you planning, I mean, probably because this is part of your, in theory, prep. Are you watching Minnesota and Seattle's MLS playoff game tonight? Because that's
Yes.
game 1 of a 3-game series, and the winner of that series plays the winner of San Diego and Portland, right?
Correct. Yeah, I
And
will be watching that.
okay, I'm gonna try and watch that as well. I didn't know if you were bouncing around all the other MLS ones, or if you're gonna be zeroed in on that one. I'll be zeroed in on that one, I think.
I was watching a little bit of Philadelphia and Chicago because it was on when I got to Snapdragon Stadium. So did watch, because you're also thinking the history of the 1 seeds, which we've briefly touched on in the MLS Cup playoffs, isn't great. Yeah, I think we went through some of those details on Friday or maybe Thursday. But I wanted to see, was Philadelphia going to find themselves in trouble? They did go to penalties. Milan Iloski was named the man of the match, by the way, on Apple TV. He scored a goal and he also
Escondido's
converted
own.
his penalty. And I'm like, ooh, okay. Interesting subplot that Milan Iloski is the man of the match, according to Apple. And here we're getting set for San Diego Football Club and Portland Timbers. And oh, by the way, Chucky Lozano is not part of the squad, which was a little bit of a surprise for me. But I'm going to talk to Mikey here in a little bit. So I'm trying to think of how it is that I'm going to get him to say something that is not, we are handling an internal issue and the like, which has been pretty common, his boilerplate response for all of the questions. I think you saw some of the media session on Friday where Mikey just kind of kept going back to it. We're dealing with it. It's an internal issue. I said it last week, just goes to show you, sometimes, even though I'm there, I thought he was going to be part of the squad. I did. I didn't think he was going to start. I think I said it. I really thought that Pellegrino was going to start because I think that's the way Mikey is. That had less to do with Chucky and more to do with Amal Pellegrino. But I'm going to be thinking about how to ask this question for like the next 45 minutes to an hour till I get out there to Saquon and interview him for the midweek show. So if anybody has any advice, you can certainly send those questions my direction.
Okay.
I'm like, Mikey, I have a couple of notes here in front of me. Like, I think he said something after the game to
Yes,
Apple TV.
This is what I was going to say. So you shouldn't tie yourself up in knots about this for the very, very simple reason. And I know I give out PR advice to the Padres all the time on this podcast. The very simple reason of Mike Ivaris is really good at this. He's really good at not answering your question, but also not turning it into something big. Someone asked him after the match if Chucky not being on the squad was a sign that Chucky had not like apologized enough to whatever. And Mikey was like, no, that's not what that means. And then just moved on to something else. Like whatever you ask him, he's going to answer it in the way that gives away the least and then move on to the next thing. So don't worry about it too much.
Yeah, I do. I know that with Mikey that you always have to have your next question ready too, because sometimes he can kind of go quick on you. So yeah, I don't know. I mean, I would think he's going to be in a good mood. I didn't listen to his post game press conference, but I saw that it was on. It's on in a radio booth, so I was looking over my shoulder while I was talking to Adrian, who is such a machine, by the way. Adrian is a machine. We
Didn't
do
you
the
call him the
midweek show
machine on
on
the
Wednesday.
broadcast?
He does the Charger game on Thursday. He did the World Series Friday, Saturday. He flew home Sunday, drove down to San Diego, did the SDFC playoff game on radio. Now he's back in Los Angeles. World Series Monday, World Series Tuesday, World Series Wednesday. We'll see what happens if the World Series is still going next Saturday. He might have some sort of conflict there. But what a machine that guy is to make his way back. But I was looking over my shoulder just to see, was Mikey, could you tell anything? He had a poker face, so I couldn't tell. Was he happy? They got the result. They won. That's important. They probably felt like they left a few goals out there on the field. I would think that that is fair, but you're not getting any extra credit here for style points, for goal differential. The only thing that matters is that you win the game, and now you're a win away from advancing to the second round of the MLS Cup playoffs. That's what matters most. But I was trying to sense the tone. I couldn't really detect it, so I'm going to try to listen to it on my way out to Saquon. I got about 45 minutes to figure that out on that drive. But again, I was surprised. I really was. I thought he'd be part of the squad. Not that I had any insight on that. I didn't have any insider information. I just figured reading the tea leaves from where it was last week, seeing him at training when I was out there on Tuesday, listening to Mikey during the week, seeing the apology after we did the podcast on Friday, seeing the apology, which I guess some people really, I thought you and I think we're on the same page. We saw the apology. We're like, good. That's good. That's great.
Good.
Okay,
That's
good.
fine.
We can all
Yeah.
move on now.
Right.
I was surprised to see so many people criticize that apology. And, to the point where people are like, I think this is artificial intelligence. This is chat GPT. I'm like, how do people know that? Where do you come up with that opinion? I guess there's some sort of filter you can run it through. But I felt like it was satisfactory enough to me as an outsider. And I don't even know that that's why he didn't play on Sunday. But I don't know. I was surprised that some seem to think that the apology felt insincere. I just never crossed my mind when I read that.
I'm gonna say something to you that someone back when the Chargers were in San Diego, someone in their kind of communications department once told me. He said, "These guys are here because they're good at playing football, not because they're good at talking."
Right.
Like he's not a professional apologizer. He's a professional soccer player. The apology was fine. It wasn't done in crayon. There wasn't typos in it. It was fine. If it wasn't the best apology I've ever seen or ever heard, like it's not even his first language he's apologizing in. So it's fine. It's fine. The apology was fine.
I thought it was okay. I thought it was
Yeah.
fine right before Mikey's getting set to speak to the media on Friday. I'm with you though. I guess I'm just naive in that I don't look at these things and I don't put it under a microscope. And I say that and I consider myself fairly cynical about stuff too. But when I saw that, I was literally getting in my car to go to Saquon, and I was like, and I sent it to you, and I was like, oh, okay, cool, like we're good. Let's move on. But
The
others,
fight's over.
the double dash, I don't. What is that?
Yeah, I
I
mean,
mean, we live in a world of deep fakes, and even
Yeah.
before we got started here, I said something to John about. Did you see, Donald Trump on Truth Social said something about not inviting teams to the White House, and he's like, no, that's a fake thing. I'm like, oh, good, thank you,
This
thank
is
you
like
for
a weekly
saving me.
occurrence now. Like either you saving me or me saving you from some sort of fake AI thing. Yeah.
Right. So again, I know to have an eye out for this sort of stuff, but I guess the double dash thing was a giveaway for some people. But even
Yeah,
if
the
he
M
did go
dash.
through Chat GPT, whatever, like I don't know that he did or didn't, and it's not my point, but it seemed something that kind of caught other people. I don't know, man. I don't know. I think it's just I'm glad that they won the game. I'm glad that this now hasn't become a bigger controversy than it felt like going into it. Because when I saw the starting 11s, I was like, uh-oh. So you're telling me that we might have seen Chucky Lozano for the final time because you lose that game and then you lose to Portland and your season's over. So, the guy who you have used, the club has used in almost all of its marketing to sell tickets, You are saying that we might have seen the last of him, and that's a pretty bold stand to take. And I think a lot of people appreciate it, but I think a lot of people a lot of other people think, I'm not so sure about this. What are our priorities here? But thankfully, John, that is not the story. 2-1, final score, goals from Ani Valakari, goal from Anders Dreyer, a goal from Christopher Velda in the first half. All goals coming in the first half, and SDFC, I don't know, did they survive the game? I would say both sides probably woke up today or went to bed last night feeling like they left at least a goal or two on the field. I know Oni Valakari probably feels that he left a couple of
He
goals.
left like 3.
And I would certainly say that Anthony and Kamal Miller probably feel like they've left goals on the field for Portland Timbers. So I thought that was about equal in terms of missed opportunities. I thought the missed opportunities were about equal. First 20, 25 minutes of the game, SDFC had all of the energy. Portland looked like it was playing on tired legs. Portland looked like it was really tentative. Portland looked like a team that had to play on Wednesday night. And San Diego looked like a team that was ready to come out of the gates firing. And they were flying all over the place. They had 10 shots in the first 25 minutes, 10 shots in the first half of the game. They looked really, really dangerous on set pieces. They were getting to all of the second balls. They were beating Portland all to the spot. They had possession. They had everything. It was really dominating. It was really, really dominating. And up 2-0, I thought this one's going to be a laugher. This one's going to be a runaway. I would have lost a lot of money if you would have said, especially at 2-0 or 2-1, what do you think the final score is going to be? I never would have said it was going to be that score. But in fact, that's the way it was for the second half. And now this team, which came in with a little bit with very little playoff experience, now everybody has playoff experience for San Diego Football Club, and that's a good thing. I thought Ian Pilcher was really good last night at right back. Again, that's another scenario that I didn't see coming. But Ian Pilcher started at right back. I thought he was terrific.
He was great.
I thought Luca Bombino was really, really good. Although, he did get shoved down and physically manhandled by Anthony on that one-on-one play in the second half. But I don't know that is necessarily something that Luca did wrong. He just physically got a bit dominated by a really, really good winger in Anthony, the Brazilian, number 11 for Portland. I guess the giveaway that led to the goal, I think that started with Luca with the ball at his feet. But overall, I thought he was good. I thought Mano Dua was really good. Yepe was amazing. Anders was terrific. Could have gotten a little bit more from Valakari. Could have gotten a little bit more from Corey Baird. But all in, I thought that it was the right result. And now you're a win away from advancing to the second round of the playoffs. So great energy in the crowd. Jackson Merrill was a crowd favorite and a crowd pleaser as he was downing his drink right on the big screen in front of everybody, in front of 30,000 people. Good presentation, concert at halftime, Frontera SD supporters, and most importantly, the first win at home in 93 days. I thought that was psychologically very important for the team to figure out a way to win a home match, which they hadn't have done since July.
Yeah, Jackson Merrill just bringing the vibes. I love that the vibes are back. If Mike Schilt was in town, Jackson Merrill's not doing that. But Mike Schilt's gone now. Jackson Merrill's down in margaritas. I love it. My takeaway from this game, and yours is incorrect, by the way. Mine's correct because it leads off the correct way, which is Mano Dua came really close to cracking like a 30-foot goal. Like if that thing didn't hit the post, I feel like it was going to be one of those ones that burns through the net and ends up like in the audience. He hit it so damn hard. More of that, please. More Mano Dua just seeing a lane and hitting it as hard as he possibly could towards the goal. Because, I don't know, does he get an assist for that? He should get an assist for that.
He does not, unfortunately.
Valakari was not scoring a goal unless it just ended up at his feet as everyone looked around going, what is that missile that the defender just fired? My question to you, and this is peek behind the curtain and everything else. You're going to go talk to Mikey in half an hour or whatever. If you don't want to answer this question, this is totally fine. But I thought Corey Baird was not great. And that's okay. It's okay. Corey Baird is playing a little bit above his level because they need him to. Marcus Ingvartson, we finally saw again for the first time in a month and the second time in 6 months. I don't know that he looked amazing, but if you were looking at everything San Diego FC did against Portland, would you be like, okay, I'm not changing anything about this team. We're going with exactly the same team next weekend. They have to show me that they can beat this team before I make changes. Or are you looking at it going like, I don't know, they kind of had four guys on unders the whole game. And like maybe we need Marcus out there to threaten in the middle. Maybe we need Chucky out there on the other side to pull the defense away from Anders a little bit. Amazing that he still found a way to score a goal with like four guys draped on him all game. But would you make that adjustment on the front line? Because everything else I felt like was pretty great, but the Baird Pellegrino thing, for the first time in a couple games, looked a little like it wasn't threatening the defense enough.
Yeah, I thought Pellegrino was good overall. Some of those passes, they found the right areas. They're just somebody wasn't there. Baird wasn't there, wasn't where he was probably supposed to be. I think the thing about Marcus and Marcus hadn't played back-to-back games, John, since the end of May, beginning of June. So, this is something that we haven't seen. Think about that since June 14th, Marcus Ingvartson playing back-to-back games. So played last week against Portland, final 10 minutes of the game, played, I think, 25 minutes last night. So that feels like it's a significant step for him. I just don't know how ready he would be to start a match.
Yeah,
I don't know if he's ready to give you 45 minutes or if he
Right.
just can come on and give you 30
Fair.
at that point.
Very fair.
But in terms of what options you might have, it's an interesting thing, and this is something I was going to ask Mikey, is you're now going to see a team for the third straight time. Like there's not a lot like that you have to learn about teams. And they're going to be shorthanded now because they had a player sent off. So Jim Forey, who's one of their better defensive players, is going to be suspended for this game. That's a huge development. Again, and it also adds a little bit to the analysis for San Diego Football Club that it played a man up for about 35 minutes and couldn't tack on a third goal. But scoring goals is hard. It really is. It's not cliche. It's a hard thing to do. It was made to look a little bit harder last night based on some of those performances. But I mean, you might want to just throw a wrinkle at him just because, right? Just because you're like, hey, like, do we have to change something? Is there a temptation just to change something for the sake of changing it? Maybe that's putting Oni Valakari up top and starting Luca De La Torre in the midfield.
I'd be okay with that.
Because I mean, Luca hasn't really started a lot. Luca, who was one of the regular starters for San Diego, he started 20 of the first 21 and he started 4 of the last 11. So, like he has found a different role here for SDFC, but maybe you can just mix it up a little bit, put Luca on the left, Oni up top. I don't know. I mean, you have some options here, but again, I think some of this will come down to what it looks like in training. Mikey always says that training matters. So what does it look like on a short week? Do you feel comfortable giving Marcus more minutes in the starting capacity? Because if he can give you 10 last week and 25 last night, what's the next step in that progression? I don't know the answer to it. So you'll have to wait a little bit and see how he recovers physically, I suppose. But I didn't think it was a big surprise that he didn't look as fluid or as connected, given that he's just working himself back into some level of fitness. But it was still good to see him out there. And the longer the playoffs go, the more and more you feel like he might be a factor. So, but I'm with you. I think, Corey Baird gets the start because he was the most experienced postseason player and because you're dealing with what you're dealing with injury-wise. So, I didn't have any. I thought the starting 11 was about mostly what I would have expected. The one surprise was Ian Pilcher playing on the right, and he played great. He hadn't played there since match day 1 against Galaxy, playing on the right side. Maybe he did it a little bit against LAFC when they were playing 5 at the back, but he was great. He had the first shot. He looked dangerous. He was involved in the attack. I mean, I was really, really impressed with Ian Pilcher last night. But yeah, I'm with you. I think it's still open for what to do at the center forward position.
Maybe this is how you ask the question to Mikey. The whole see right through this, but maybe the way to ask the question is, hey, when you guys are at I was trying to figure out how to say when Chucky comes back without saying when Chucky comes back. But you could ask the question of, is the last couple games a sign that you are done with Pellegrino at the 9? Or is that still an option going forward? Because if he's like, yeah, when Chucky comes back next week, Pellegrino's one of the ones we're thinking about at the 9, that would say a lot. I just don't think he's going to say that.
Yeah. Yeah, no, Pellegrino was funny last week. After our interview, we were chatting a little bit about playing the number 9. He's like, dude, I was getting roughed up down there. He's like, I'm tall, but I am not big. Like I do not have a lot of
Lanky.
meat on these bones, and
Yeah.
these center halves are just roughing me up. Like, oh, I'm a 35-year-old man. I want to be out there on the wing. I want to be cutting in. I want to be driving with the ball at my feet. Yeah, I mean it's a fair question, and again, I think sometimes I do wonder: is there a temptation just to say we should switch things up just because we're playing a team for the third time,
Yeah.
and we don't want them to feel comfortable, even though we've been better. They haven't beaten you yet. Scoreless draw at Snapdragon Stadium on August 23rd, and then a 4-0 beatdown, battered them at Portland, and then winning last night 2-1. They haven't beaten you, so if it ain't broke, don't fix it. But sometimes I do think there is a temptation to say, like, do we want to just tweak things a little bit just to keep them on their toes? I don't see that you have a ton of options to do that. Like you said, I think the Lozano factor is going to be interesting. He was there last night, and I think you asked this question on the Discord, and I wouldn't claim to know the rules about why he wasn't down on the bench, but I do think players that are non-rostered are mostly going to be in another part of the stadium. At least whenever I've seen players that have been injured or players that have not been part of the squad, sometimes we see them up there in the booths. If players are suspended or whatever, sometimes you see them in the seats. So I wouldn't read too much into that, why Chucky wasn't around the team. I did read something in the Union Tribune today. It was described as a bit of a dismissive. Was that the right word? It was on the front row seat. One of the front row you had it here. I have it open right in front of me. Mexican star Hirving Chucky Lozano didn't start to play or suit up for that matter, and the latest indication that the rift with coach Mikey Vadas is not fully mended. So is the dismissive drive-by handshake between the two on the field after the game, as well as Lozano's muted celebration with his teammates. I did not see any of that. I am reading that literally from the Union Tribune. What's that?
I saw the celebrations with the teammates, just basically just high-fiving them. Hey, good game, whatever. Like, no one was going crazy. It was like, hey, good game. All right, on to the next one. And so that was fine. I did not see the drive-by handshake between Chucky and Mikey. I kind of wish I had.
Yeah, I'll have to go back and watch it a little later and see if there was something to that. So I don't know. That's the way it was written in the Union Tribune, but that was news to me when I woke up this morning. So thank you yet again. Front row seat. If you're a subscriber to section1904.com, you get the daily newsletter delivered right there to the inbox, courtesy of John Gennaro. That's pretty much what I got. Rossi Rock halftime. Rossi Rock also did a little impromptu concert at the end of the game in the after party called Extra Time, which was great. So enjoyed that. Got a little video on my phone that I might post on the Instagram a little later. Let me see if I have any other final notes on this one. Phil Neville, the head coach from Portland, blamed the referee. Said the referee was it was the Chris Penso show, according to Phil Neville. I thought the red card felt justified to me. I mean, that's on Jim Orfori. I'm sorry. He picked up a yellow, and then 2 minutes later, he put himself in a terrible position. So I don't have any issue with that. But Portland is not good at scoring. They are the second lowest scoring team in the MLS Cup playoffs, and you saw a little bit why last night. So,
and I felt like the ref was, being pretty even-handed. Did Valakari, was he the one who got the yellow for basically like yelling at the ref? There was someone on SDFC who yelled right at the ref because he wanted a call that he wasn't getting, and the ref just pulled out the yellow. Was like, "Yep, you're not going to treat me like that." So you knew what it was.
Did he get a yellow? I do not have him as a yellow. As a matter of fact, I see Luca got a yellow. I see Pilcher got a yellow. And those are the only 2 yellows on my score sheet.
Maybe I'm thinking of someone on Portland. Maybe that was Velde. Someone yelled at the ref, and the ref pulled out the yellow. Like, you're not going to upstage me in front of the cameras like this. And I was like, oh, okay. He's letting you know he doesn't want to hear it. That's fine. But yeah, I thought the ref was fine. Look, this still felt like a dominant game despite a close score. It felt like it was almost never really. I never felt like it was in danger of San Diego Football Club like losing control of this one to Portland. It felt similar to the 4-0 game last week, except Portland was more tired because they've played a game since then. In the first half, they were very tired. I thought Chara, who's very good, looked very tired for this match. And it's a different keeper, right, for Portland? And he had a couple.
Same one. That was a little bit of a surprise for me.
He had a couple
James
great
Pantemis,
saves.
who allowed a season-high 4 goals last time out. I thought he made a couple great saves early on.
Yeah.
A couple of those saves, like, whoa, this is man of the match kind of stuff.
Yeah.
from him early on. But yeah, then he, what are you going to do? I mean, that the set piece goal and then a really, really nice, nifty chip from Luca Bombino to find Dryer for the header. So I thought he was pretty good. Pantemis was. I wasn't sure that they were going to start him, given that he'd given up the 4 goals. But Phil Neville, the head coach for Portland, pretty much went exactly. I think it was exactly the starting 11 that played against Real Salt Lake. I think he started the same
I think that's
11
right.
Wednesday night, again on Sunday, and it looked like some guys that played in the middle of the week for the first 20 minutes of the match. They were
Yeah.
tentative. I thought they looked a little slow. I thought they looked a little tired. Again, SDFC was quicker to everything. So looked like they were going to run them off the field. Credit to Portland. Portland played, and Portland's got some dangerous pieces. Velda's a dangerous piece. They have a couple of players. Anthony, dangerous player. I don't know why he tried to chip CJ Dos Santos in that spot. He could have dribbled around him and probably equalized, but we'll take it. We'll take it either way. So on to Portland we go. John, the other thing that we were paying attention to, and it was on both of our top 5s heading into the weekend, was San Diego State and Fresno State, the battle for the old oil can. 12:30 on Saturday afternoon, a blackout crowd expected, and was in their capacity. 41,000, I think I read in the game report. San Diego State wins 23-0 against Fresno State. The old oil can remains with San Diego State. They shut out Fresno. I think it was the first shutout ever at home for Fresno, if I read that correctly.
Correct.
Or at least in 4 decades. Fresno made a surprising quarterback switch. They benched Kurt Warner's son to start some transfer from Sacramento State, which I didn't fully understand. I was excited as a neutral to see a good competitive game. It was not that.
Not what we
but
got.
if you are a San Diego State fan, you don't really care. Nobody gives a shit about a good competitive game. In 23-0, another shutout win. San Diego State's points against average is second in the U.S., second in all of college football at 10.4 per game. Now, their offense, I don't know, but they are doing things defensively that are really impressive. And after 6 games, you'd have to say it's not just a question of playing Stony Brook or playing Northern Illinois. They're doing it a lot. And I think you did a really great write-up on Saturday at section1904.com about they're bowl eligible. They won the old oil can. They retained it. This is a breakthrough season for Sean Lewis. How good are they? It's tough to know based on the level of competition. And just to back that up, strength of schedule right now for San Diego State is 131st.
Yeah, it's about right.
In all of college football. Strength of record, which is some made-up stat. I don't even know that I want to go through the exercise of trying to explain it because I don't even know that I understand it. But it's 45th. Their remaining strength of schedule is 82nd. The 6 wins, John, I included Stony Brook in there, even though they're not a Division I team. The teams that San Diego State has beaten this year are a combined 19-29. That's not San Diego State's fault.
Right.
You play the schedule. It's not San Diego State's fault that Northern Illinois isn't any good, or that Colorado State is 2-6, or that Nevada's 1-7. And even the wins against Cal, I suppose, or the loss against Wazoo, you could go through that and say, well, are these teams any good? I don't know. Is Cal any good? Cal's lost to, Cal beat Boston College and North Carolina, and Oregon State that's 1-7. But in terms of the eye test, I think San Diego State does. You could really get buried under an avalanche of numbers. How good are they? I don't really know the answer to that, but they're good enough to be bowl eligible. And they're good enough to have a defense now, which is nationally ranked. So they are mostly passing the eye test, but that passing offense to me is still leaving a lot to be desired. 115th in college football. It's not great, which is something that we often associate with a Sean Lewis type of offense. That's what he was brought in here to do, was modernize the offense, particularly the passing game. Don't feel like it's quite there. We've seen some moments where it's looked really, really good. But again, this is a lot of words to say. That was, I thought, a good win. I did. I think it was a good win. It wasn't exactly the way I thought it was going to go. But you don't apologize for wins, especially when it's a win that makes you bowl eligible for the first time in a while.
Yeah, I wanted a good win against a good team. This didn't feel like a good win against a good team. This felt like a good win against a team that was kind of throwing it. And I still don't understand why. Like it doesn't appear that Kurt Warner's kid has been bad, but so in I have a couple notes here that we'll get into about this game, and then I want to look forward a little bit. My two notes about this game is one, the offense scored one touchdown. Like you're playing against a
Yeah.
team that's not that good. You got to score more than one touchdown. Also, the passing game was almost non-existent. The running game was pretty good. This Lucky Sutton kid seems really good. Every game he's getting 100 yards and a touchdown. It seems like he's pretty good. At one point, Jaden Denegal threw a 54-yard pass to Byron Cardwell, who's a running back. I don't remember that, and I couldn't find video of it. I'm assuming this was like a check down or a screen pass or something like
That
that.
was a little wheel. It was a wheel route down the right
Okay,
sideline.
that makes some sense. Outside of that, if you take that one out, or if you just say passes to receivers, the longest reception in this game, reception, that includes catching the ball and running after you catch the ball by either team, Darren. Either team was 14 yards. There was
Mm.
no play longer than 14 yards except for Byron Cardwell's wheel route for 54 yards. Uh, I'm not gonna say like Denegal's been figured out, but I pointed out earlier in the season, Denegal he's got a huge arm. He could take advantage down the field, but short passes, he's usually off by just enough for the play to get disturbed. And Fresno State really played defense like we're gonna hang back. We know he wants to show off his big arm, and we know if we tell him to just take whatever underneath, he's gonna find ways to torture himself, and he did. So the San Diego State offense, still a question mark. Whether or not this team is actually good compared to the rest of college football, still a question mark. And now I'm just counting down the days until I can maybe answer that question. I know we both have Boise State circled, and that matchup because we're pretty sure Boise State is kind of a tier above a lot of these Mountain West teams. But in 2 weeks, I know I'm already looking past Wyoming, but in 2 weeks, San Diego State travels to Hawaii. You and I were texting last week, maybe it was during this game even, about the Mountain West standings and who's gonna win the Mountain West championship, like who has the best odds and all that. Right now, Boise State's sitting on top. They're 6-2 with a 4-0 conference record. San Diego State is second with a 6-1 record, 3-0 in conference. Sitting third, not the UNLV team that you and I had discussed that San Diego State does not play this year for some reason. Hawaii, 6-2 with a 3-1 conference record, sitting right behind San Diego State. Their losses have come to Kurt Warner's kid and the Fresno
Mm.
State Bulldogs and Arizona, who and that was week 2. So that was kind of like their Washington State loss. I could probably make a lot of comparisons between Hawaii and San Diego State this year in terms of their record and what the stats say, both in terms of them being good and their in terms of the competition they're beating. Are you going to feel better about San Diego State if they handily beat Hawaii in 2 weeks, or is it just going to feel exactly the same as you do right now?
I think I'd probably feel better. I haven't had a ton of exposure to Hawaii, so I think I'd probably have to learn a little bit more
They beat
on
Stanford.
that. Okay.
I mean, that was week 1, but they beat Stanford.
Yeah, I mean, you get into this game where you just start going through everybody else's schedule, where you're like, okay, well, let me see. Like, they lost to Wazoo. Is Wazoo any good? They're first in the Pac-12. What does that mean? There's 2 teams in that conference. So, you start going through Cal's schedule and nitpicking it. You're like, wow, they got their doors blown off by Duke and lost in overtime to Virginia Tech, but who have they beaten? But, I think I would. I mean, I think I would as long as it preserves, what it is that you and I were just talking about, which is out there on the horizon on November 15th, which is the game against Boise State. Like you want that game to feel like it is
Yeah.
really it is going to have big time implications because now Fresno's in the rearview mirror. This game was much more important to Fresno State than it was to San Diego State because Fresno had already lost in Fresno's out. Like Fresno is out of the running in the Mountain
They're
West
out.
Conference, barring
Yep.
something, a collapse from both Boise State, San Diego State, and Hawaii, to your point. So, even though they would hold the tiebreaker there, but now they're essentially 3 back of San Diego State. Like that's over, which is why it was such a curious thing to change a quarterback for a game like this.
So weird.
I wish I knew more about it, but EJ Warner, who was who was what? This is Kurt Kenny in the Union Tribune. EJ Warner, the nation's active career yardage leader and son of Hall of Famer Kurt Warner, was benched in favor of Carson Conklin. Carson Conklin completed 20 of 42 for 182, intercepted twice. Like, what's that about? The nation's active career yardage leader
To be
was
fair,
benched for Carson Conklin. I don't know.
to be fair, he's thrown 10 touchdowns and 9 interceptions.
Okay.
And when
And
I
San Diego State can pick the ball off.
Yeah, and when I searched around for like why they were maybe benching him, I was like, is this like a controversy? Like, is this a behind the scenes whatever? I saw a lot of people saying like, he turned the ball over 4 times against Colorado State last week, and they're not happy about that, so they're trying out something else. Also, like Conklin, he's a transfer. He played at Temple his first 2 years and Rice last year, so they're just shuffling through until they find the right quarterback. But did seem like a weird time. I guess the only reason they did it was they were like, no, we're going to get crushed with this Warner guy. Let's see what Conklin has to offer.
I also would remind everybody that we're 8 days away, a week from tomorrow, from the first college football playoff rankings coming out, which I would tell everybody, I don't have any more energy left in my life to argue about AP top 25s or coaches top 25s. They're irrelevant. Yes, of course, you would like to have your team in the top 25, but they are 100% useless. They mean absolutely nothing. It's good, I suppose, for the brand, for marketing to say you're in the top 25. The only rankings that matter are the rankings that come out for the first time a week from tomorrow, November 4th, first college football playoff rankings, and we'll know exactly how it is, presuming, of course, that San Diego State wins again against Wyoming. Saturday, I think that game is. Yeah, Saturday at 4:00. I know that because of the conflict, the radio conflict. That's the only ranking that matters. So we'll know exactly how it is that the College Football Playoff Committee feels about the Mountain West Conference or the AAC in terms of the college football playoff. So I think it's premature to start getting into that, but we will at least have a little bit of information with the first college football playoff rankings, which come out next Tuesday. So that's a big production. It's a big television show. You'll forgive me. I just don't give a shit at all about the AP top 25 or the coaches top 25. They're just there to create some dialogue, to create talk radio segments. That's it. That's all they do. They serve no purpose. They're totally useless. So you'll forgive me for not feeling one way or the other about San Diego State not being ranked or just being outside of the top 25. I don't have any more.
I've heard enough coaches talk about how they went about voting for teams that I stopped caring about the coaches poll so long ago. And you're absolutely right. All right, we've done SDFC, we've done SDSU. We talked a little World Series. Anything going on with the Padres? Anything at all? The Orioles maybe have hired a manager. I thought that was interesting only because it's been floated around that, the Padres are interested in Ryan Flaherty, Cubs bench coach, but he might just go to the Orioles instead. Well, he's not going to the Orioles. I guess he could always just stay with the Cubs as a bench coach, but that was interesting to me that the Padres kind of like sitting around waiting, not doing much. Doesn't seem like it's hurting them that much, at least not yet. And then I did see big, important news story, Darren. Fernando Tatis Jr. was asked if he would be excited to play for manager Albert Pujols. Did you hear what his answer was?
Of course.
Of course. Big, important story. Of course.
Yeah, that was some great journalism there. He said in a text message, a 2-word response, of course.
Of course. And every headline, Fernando Tatis Jr. has 2-word response for they couldn't just say Fernando Tatis Jr. excited at the prospect of playing with. Nope, got to get that click, baby. Get that click.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, that was amazing journalism. What's he supposed to say? And this is the manager for the Dominican national team. It's potentially his next manager. It sounds like, and this is like, third, fourth, this is not even first or second person, like third, fourth person. Sounds like Pujols, left a decent impression. Don't read anything into that. Please don't turn this into something on social media. But I had my doubts about Albert Pujols, and it sounds like based on again third and fourth hand information. Like, people are like, wow, okay, that was better. I still think the thing for me, John, is we're going on almost a month since the end of the postseason, since the Padres season ended. We're going on now several weeks since Eric Grupner went on Ben and Woods and said that AJ Preller and John Seidler are discussing a contract negotiation, and we don't have any news on that. We don't have any news on that at all. And oh, by the way, the Colorado Rockies still have not hired a president of baseball operations. And I will tell you, I will read this sources. This is this is sort of again people in the sport that they're still interviewing people. I guess there's two favorites. I don't know who either one of them are. Somebody named Foreman and somebody named Sawday or Day, or I don't know, Sawdaye. How would you pronounce that? But those are considered some of the favorites here, but there seems to be still some intrigue about the Colorado Rockies. And, for as long as we have no news about AJ Preller and his future with the Padres organization, and as long as we have no news with the Colorado Rockies and what it is that they're doing, potentially with a president of baseball operations and a general manager, I would tell you until either one of those situations are completely cleared, done, and dusted, that I will continue to suggest that there is a chance that we will hear something about AJ Preller potentially being involved or interested in the Colorado Rockies. Now, I'm not saying he's going to go. I've said all along, I still think even by the slightest of margins, the most likely scenario is AJ Preller remaining with the Padres because he has a contract with the Padres. That's a legal document. It is binding. You cannot just leave. Now, a lot of organizations will let you leave, especially if this perceived tension is a reality and if it hasn't been smoothed over. But, as long as the Rockies thing is still floating around out there, and as long as AJ Preller's future still has some questions about it, then I think we're waiting, trying to think and wonder why it is that this is taking a little bit longer. Maybe it's just about prioritizing managerial interviews instead of AJ Preller's future, because like I said, he does have a contract. And maybe AJ's like, I don't need to deal with this right now. You know what I need to deal with? Finding a manager. But I also think we need to know a little bit more about the process and whether AJ Preller has, the type of autonomy that we believe that he wants in hiring a manager. That it's not going to be somebody else's decision, that it's not going to be somebody else's preferred choice, that it's going to be AJ Preller's choice. So, again, we just don't know. And it does make you wonder and scratch your head a little bit, not with tinfoil hats on, but it does make you wonder what's going on here. That we were told very, very publicly that there was a negotiation ongoing about an extension for AJ Preller with the Padres directly with John Seidler. That came from Eric Grupner on the radio. And here we are at least a couple of weeks later. I realize these things aren't done overnight, but what is AJ Preller, what do you think AJ Preller's doing? Holding everybody up here because he wants a ton of money? I don't think so. I think what it is that AJ Preller is trying to figure out is how much autonomy am I going to have with an owner who was not the owner when I signed my last contract, when there was this clear separation of church and state, baseball operations and the business side. So that would just be my guess. But until I see that the Rockies have hired somebody and or that the Padres and AJ Preller, that there's some news on that front, I just think it lingers, and it has lingered for a couple of weeks. And nobody is coming out and saying that this is not going to happen or that this is not even a possibility. How about that? Nobody's saying that this is not a possibility. So it just sort of hovers around there. And it's just kind of, again, this was Friday afternoon. Couple of guys are finalists, still legit candidates. Rockies are interviewing other people. And, that's on Friday afternoon that I got this, that the Rockies are still interviewing people. And we still don't have any information. I would have thought for sure last week we would have had a little bit of clarity about AJ Preller and his future. But we don't have that clarity. So we're left to guess a little bit and speculate a little bit. And again, until either one of those situations is resolved, John, I think it's something that at least for me, I'm going to be thinking about. So I know where I would like this to end up, but till we see it, it's the Padres. We've said this a million times. Like the Padres, their off seasons are a little different. They're a little different around San Diego than they are in other places.
Two things. One, I wanted to look up the way this is worded, and it's worded exactly the way that I thought it would be. There is a story on MLB.com about about finalists for the Rockies general manager opening. Not the finalists, not the last two finalists, but finalists. And they're the people that you mentioned: Guardians executive vice president slash assistant GM, Matt Foreman, and Diamondback senior vice president slash assistant GM. I'm probably going to butcher this. Emil Sade, maybe it's Sade. I don't know. They've been identified as finalists for the Rockies general manager opening, which means there could easily be unidentified finalists as well. They're not the only finalists out there. I think this is more important than you stated, because you were like, maybe they're just prioritizing hiring a manager. Albert Pujols interviewed with the Angels, and then very quickly it was like, Albert Pujols and the Angels, it's not moving forward. And no one really knew, like, was that the Angels? Was that Pujols? We don't know. Then 2 days later, it's Kurt Suzuki, signed by the Angels to be their manager on a 1-year contract. I know not everyone has 700 career home runs in Major League Baseball, but, I'm sure you've talked to people about this, Darren. When you are someone who's coming up through the ranks and you have an opportunity to manage a team, you have to put some thought process into the first team you manage. Because if you become a manager of a team and that team is terrible, then every time you interview for a job after that, it's going to be, well, couldn't make anything of this team, right? And I do think that Albert Pujols probably talked to the Angels, and they probably tried to pull this same thing on him of like, we want a 1-year deal, a trial, really earn it thing. And he was like, no, I'm not gonna manage the Angels for one terrible year and have my reputation ruined. But on the same side, he's interviewing with the Padres, and as far as we know, the manager's boss is the general manager, president of baseball operations, right? So AJ Preller, whether or not he gets free reign to hire whoever he wants, essentially would be the boss of this manager. And are you telling Albert Pujols, like, yeah, AJ's going to be your boss for the first year, and after that, we'll figure it out? Like, isn't that kind of like the same offer he just walked away from with the Angels, which is just like so much uncertainty about the future. Things could absolutely come crashing, crumbling down a year from now and completely reshape the job, the team, the organization around you. I don't know. I do think you have to have an answer, because I'm sure these managers are asking the team, like, what's the plan for baseball ops like 3 years from now? Is there a plan? I'm sure there's an answer.
Be set up for success, right?
Right.
I mean, you definitely want to think about that, especially if you're somebody like Albert Pujols and you're thinking about what your first opportunity is going to look like. You want that to go well.
Yeah.
You do really want that to go well, and you want to feel good that you are in alignment. You don't want to just take a job because you're trying to get out of the house. At least I hope that's not the case, or the motivation for Albert Pujols. You think you want to do this because you want to win and you want to be successful. And not only do you want to be remembered as a great player, but maybe you also want to be remembered as a really good manager and somebody who did something that not a lot of players can do, really great players, which is convert and be a really good manager in your post-playing career. So I would think that that is probably pretty important to Albert, not knowing him at all and not really knowing what his motivation is. But I would think that that's probably a pretty important thing for him. Like I said, I don't think he's just trying to get out of the house or, get back on airplanes and travel around the country and spend 8 months of the year away from his family. But yeah, I would think that would be one of the top questions that I would ask, because I could certainly be, I certainly can say, wow, listen, like, this is Fernando Tatis Jr., this is Manny Machado. There's some pretty good pitching around here, right? This is a pretty appealing job. The lifestyle. I've always asked people, what is it about San Diego? Isn't anybody ever scared off because of the, some of the palace intrigue, some of the drama? It's like, no, man, people are really, the quality of life, the travel, like, people really view that as the plum job, one of the plum jobs in all of Major League Baseball. So, it's the stuff that we get wrapped in, the minutia of the day to day. I don't think that has that's not a huge factor for people that are considering it. But you are right. Like, if I was a first-time manager, I would want to know, and I'm Albert Pujols, and I have a standard of how things have been done in my career. I would absolutely want some more information on that, because I will get other opportunities just simply because I'm Albert Pujols. Now, other managers might not have that luxury. If we're talking about somebody, I don't know, pick a name. If we're talking about somebody who's just desperate to get into managing, they'd be like, oh, I can't turn this down. I don't care what the structure is. Whatever. If Preller's here, if he's not here, what do I care? Yeah, I'll answer to Eric Grubner. What can go wrong? What do I care? But I don't know that that would be for somebody with the profile of Albert Pujols. But
Yeah, I saw a really funny clip. It's probably old, but I saw a really funny clip over the weekend of Albert Pujols talking about hitting on MLB Network, and he's talking about how he likes to grab the knob of the bat and kind of swing the knob of the bat, and he's talking about how this is what Tony Gwynn taught him when he was really young. Just grab onto the knob and you're kind of twisting the knob to swing the bat. And he said, and some people they disagree with this. And some voice from someone else off screen goes, those people don't have 703 career home runs. And Albert just starts laughing. He's like, yep, you're right. You're right. But yeah, there
yeah,
there are some people that would be desperate to take them. Albert does not have
Albert's
to
a
be one of them.
really, I don't have a ton of experience, and I do not claim to know him at all, but I have interviewed him a couple of times. And I do remember one time, it was when Jerry Coleman was still alive. And once Albert Pujols, it was still pretty early on in his career, it was somewhere in the mid 2000s. He found out that Jerry Coleman played with Joe DiMaggio, right? Because Joe DiMaggio had the 56 game hitting streak. And I guess Albert, when he was growing up, he idolized, even players from different generations. And Joe DiMaggio, like when he found out that Jerry Coleman had played with Joe DiMaggio, he made it a point of going and finding Jerry Coleman so he could talk to him about what it was like being teammates with Joe DiMaggio.
Huh.
Yeah, it was really cool. Like it was a really cool thing because we were interviewing him and we were talking about that, and he was sort of taken by the fact that there was somebody at Petco Park that had played against or played with Joe DiMaggio, and
Yeah.
that was somebody that Albert, I guess, had I don't know. I mean, I don't know if he studied him or whatever, but he was aware of everything that the guy had done in his career, and he's like, really, I got to meet. And then afterwards, I always remember Marty sent me a picture because he went out and Jerry Coleman came down to the field, and the two of them just sat there and they talked. So, he is somebody that I think is does have some, some depth and some appreciation and the history of the game, understands it all. It's not just like, man, I'm fucking bored and I need a job. I mean, I do think that there's a lot going on there with him. So again, that doesn't mean he's going to be a good manager, and it just means he wanted to talk to Jerry Coleman one day. But that is not to be taken as an endorsement of anything at
Hey,
all.
who among us did not want to talk baseball with Jerry Coleman every day?
That was the best, man. He was absolutely the best. Well, listen, there's a million other things that we can get into here. I know you and I were texting a little bit about Amazon and Amazon's presentation of the NBA.
Really good.
And Peacock's presentation of the NBA, which is really good. It's nice to watch some of these broadcasts and feel like the people that are providing the analysis actually like the sport of basketball. Like what a refreshing thing to tune into and to watch. Like that is really it's a nice thing to watch when you're an NBA fan, instead of people just yelling and not knowing the names of the players that they're talking about.
Yeah, I also really, really, really appreciate. I think Apple was kind of the first one to do this, but I really appreciate these games being broadcast by networks that are not sports networks all the time. Like, I understand why ESPN during a game has a ticker on the bottom telling you everything there is to know about sports, because people just leave ESPN on. That's the sports channel, right? I understand Fox Sports 1 doing it for the same reason. But man, I cannot stand when there's a ticker at the bottom of a game when it's not ESPN or Fox Sports, and I hate when it's on ESPN and Fox Sports for this reason. And I love watching games on Apple, and I love watching games on Peacock, and I love watching games on Prime. I love occasionally watching a game on Netflix when it's there, the football games and what have you, because there's no reason and no real like built-in way to have a ticker full of just like sports news pelting me at all times. I just want to watch the game. And I love that we're everyone's clearing out and just going, watch the game. Makes me happy.
Yeah, it's good. I mean, the analysis with Udonis Haslam, Steve Nash, Dirk Nowitzki, like that was good. That was really, really good on Amazon. I enjoyed that a lot. Taylor
Don't
Rooks, I think, was the
Yeah.
studio host.
I mean, Steve Nash was an NBA head coach like 3 years ago. Like he knows this stuff. They're
Plus,
all
Nash
really
and,
smart.
and Nowitzki reunited in any capacity. Google those pictures of some of
The best.
some of their exploits when they were teammates with the Dallas Mavericks. These guys would regularly go out to the local bars and they would just take a bunch of pictures with people, and they were known to tie it on pretty good after some of the games.
Oh yeah.
So yeah, so some of the pictures that you can still find on the interwebs are quite hilarious of those guys. Yeah, so I think outside of the FBI investigation, it's been a pretty good start to the NBA season.
The NBA is thrilled that that's happening in Portland because it's so far away from everything else that's going on in the NBA right now.
Although I did see a story yesterday about Antonio Gates being tied up in one of these card games, and I'm not sure. I have to read on that. I didn't have the bandwidth to make it part of my Sunday routine. And since we're going earlier today, maybe we'll save that for a little later on this week. But it's not breaking news. It's not really shocking to anybody that covers sports that athletes participate in high stakes card games.
Shocking. Even more
Now,
shocking to find out they're rigged.
Yeah, whether or not they're using infrared technology to cheat people out of millions of dollars, that would be new. That would be new. But yes, athletes, actors. I think we've all seen Molly's Game or read Molly's Game, so we understand.
I saw Molly's Game.
Yeah,
I saw someone making reference to that scene very early on in Ocean's 11. George Clooney gets out of prison and he finds Brad Pitt, and Brad Pitt's got the card room in the back with all the celebrities, and he's teaching them poker. And someone's like, yeah, there's a room in the back of somewhere where it's like all these ex-athletes and Brad Pitt's teaching them how to play poker.
Yeah. Well, again, pretty good start to the NBA season. Not just selfishly, I say that. We've seen a lot of scoring, a lot of 40-point games.
It's beginning of the season. The defenses are A, not settled, and B, not playing too hard right now. Also, by the way, just don't get too excited about beating the Celtics just yet. I know they won the title.
Oh, I'm going to be excited about beating the Celtics. When when you get pummeled by a team over and over and over again, I don't care. I don't care who's playing there.
It's revenge.
It feels good, and I will have no sympathy for these teams that have beat up on everybody else. I will have zero sympathy for them. I will enjoy that. When you get your ass kicked as often as the Knicks have had their asses kicked by teams like the Cavs and the Celtics, I am going to enjoy that. That's why beating the Dodgers in the playoffs a bunch of years ago was such an important moment in the Padres' history. Because you're tired of getting kicked around by the Dodgers year after year after year. So it was something to celebrate. I know the Dodger fans all like, oh, where's your banner for beating the Dodgers? Like, that was an amazing week for the San Diego Padres. So I think that always should be celebrated, and you should always revel in the glory of knocking them out of the playoffs in their best ever regular season. You should always revel in that. So unapologetic about celebrating victories. You should celebrate them. Don't get enough of them in life. All right, that's a Monday. Thank you all again. If you're just checking us out because it is the free episode of the week. It's going to be the only planned free episode of the week. So go to section1904.com. You can subscribe for as little as $5 a month. Thank you again. Several people at Snapdragon Stadium mentioned McGregor's, did say, that they're enjoying what it is that we're doing. And it's a big week for us. John and I have some things that we have to square away in a good way, in a positive way. So we're excited about what the next couple of steps are going to be here for this project for Section 1904. But thank you very much for your support. And again, we do appreciate it. Section1904.com. You can subscribe for as little as $5 a month. You're supporting independent media, which every day feels like it's a more important thing when you're reading some of the stuff that's going on with legacy media and corporate media. Really important to be supportive of independent media, this operation or another one. So thank you for that, John. Thank you.
Thank you.